We are doing a series on connected in the cloud. This week we are going to be taking a look at the role of the MEP consultants, and I'm joined by Bruce Harris, who is our senior technical solutions consultant. I'm going to introduce him a little further when I hand it over to him, but he has been around for about 31 years and is certainly one of the best. For those that were not here last week or are here and are returning, a little bit of recap for what we talked about last week. We kind of talked about some challenges in collaboration that we deal with now with regards to data loss and just being able to have everybody on the same page. We talked a little bit about some of the existing tools that are not really built for design that everybody's using. They work for data transfer, but they aren't necessarily the most efficient tools. Those were just your FTP sites and that type of stuff, Dropbox, etc. We talked a little bit about the industry trends that we've been seeing, and we talked a little bit about the kind of the direction of what we see the AEC space taking when it comes to digitization. And we talked a little bit about what it's going to look like to set up a cloud environment and work in a space where everybody is working and accessing the same data. We showed you some of those preliminary responsibilities, which Bruce is going to again review that information for us today. And I just wanted to build a little bit on that. Last week we spoke with our architect, Brody Whitlock, and he showed us how the architect would set up his project and how he's going to take and create a central file in the cloud and then begin to design and share those packages out. And today we're going to see how now that project has begun and the data has begun to evolve, the consultants have been invited into the project. We're going to look at how they joined, and now we'll link in the architectural model and explore some design changes, and then they're going to reload that shared architectural model and explore that data-rich cloud environment from working with BIM. Just so we can kind of re-visualize that, we showed these last week. We want to show them again here. The cloud environment, what that looks like. We need to set up a project that's going to have our models and data built out of it. And connected to that are going to be our design teams, our architecture firms, and our consultants. And they will work within Revit to generate those BIM models and then extend that information out into the field, whether that be just the general contractor or other executives and field operatives, whoever has real need for that information. And just to kind of further develop that visualization and for the point of pointing out, with this data repository, we aren't necessarily restricted to Revit files. We also have our DWG files and PDFs, our NWCs, our office documents are up there, and each one of these teams is going to be able to have access to all of that same information the same way. So it's one single repository, one source of truth for the data through the entirety of the project. Of course, last week we did talk about creating, viewing, and sharing. This week, very similarly, we're going to show the consultants' roles as they create the MEP project, compare those shared model versions, and then collaborate with the other team members and stakeholders. Next week, I will be taking on the role of the general contractor as we continue to complete the design phase of this medical building that we are working on and extending that construction document out into the field. We're going to take a look at a mobile 3D model, and we're going to work on requesting information and how we can do that efficiently and cleanly. We're going to identify and document risk associated with the job, and then we are going to create some reports. So with that, we're going to go ahead and move on into the MEP, the Connected Consultant. And Bruce, as I said, mentioned before, he is our MEP specialist and a senior technical solutions consultant here. And for this scenario, he's going to be taking on the role of an MEP firm, and he's going to be demonstrating their interaction with the project as we continue to develop the design data. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand this over to Bruce.
Thank you, Matthew. Today, we're going to look at creating the central model in the cloud and linking in the architect's model, comparing new versions of the model when the architect shares a new version with us, and being able to see the changes between those models. And then we're also going to show you the collaboration tools that we have with other project stakeholders that allow us to mark up, create issues, and also the data-rich environment that we have in the cloud. So let's switch over to Revit. Now over in Revit, I have began my project just the way I always would with my same template. I gave it a name and I've saved it. And now I'm ready to create a central file. Same procedure up to this point in time that we do with your own central file on your own server. We're going to do the same command, the collaborate command up here, except this time instead of choosing within your network like you typically do, we're going to choose in the BIM 360 document management. Now when we do, it's going to show us the different hubs that we've been invited to. Now this list could be quite a long list if you work with a lot of different architects. So I'm going to go into the particular one that I want to go into the project that I've been invited into. And the folder structure I see here is not the entire folder structure. It's the folder structure that the architect has given me permission to. So I'm going to go into this MEP folder and go into the mechanical folder, and that's where I'm going to place my central model. So I'm going to initiate, and now it's going to place my central model up on the server. And this process doesn't take long at all. And then we're going to do a few more things once it gets up there. So while it's loading that up there, we're going to switch over to the web interface. So let me switch over to the web interface. Now I'm over in the web interface. And as you can see, I see the same project structure that I saw when I was in Revit. And if I choose that mechanical folder, we see the file that I uploaded into that folder. So at this point in time, my file is up there in the project. And now I want to switch from my document management view to my design collaboration view. Now in the previous webinar, Brody had placed a model up there for me to grab. So I'm going to sit here and select that model and say that I want to consume that model. Now that basically is putting a point-in-time model that he created in the folder that I can use to link it into my file. So with that said, I'm going to switch back over to Revit and we're going to link in this model that we just consumed. So now over in Revit, I want to link in that file that I just consumed. So I'll go up here to Insert, and I'm going to link Revit. And we're going to go into that MEP folder, into the Consumed folder, into the Architects folder, and this is the architectural background that we just consumed. So now when we finish linking in that file, we'll be ready to work on our project and start doing our MEP design. Now we just went over how easy it was to create a central model in the cloud and how similar it is to the workflow that you're already using. And we linked in the architect's model. Next, we want to talk about when we receive notification that there is a new model available. We want to be able to compare that and see what's changed between the versions. This really helps in the communication process because it gives you a visual cue of what changes are there. So let's take a look at that. So now I'm over in the web interface and I'm using the design collaboration module, and I want to explore the new model that the architect has made available to me. Now, he sent me an email notification through the system. So I want to come out here and choose that new model and say I want to show the changes that have taken place in that new model. Now in this 3D view here, I can see the changes between the models, and over here on the left, it's showing me the color coding system it uses to identify those changes. So the items in green have been added to the model. The items in red have been removed from the model, and the objects in yellow have been modified. So I can orbit around and take a look at it in a complete 3D model, or maybe I just want to concentrate on what's going on the ground floor. So I can go over here and say in levels, let's just take a look at what's going on in the ground floor. So now I can eliminate the floors above and below and only see the floor that I'm interested in. So you can view this by levels. You can also go over here and view it by phases if it was a phased project. So there are many ways to view those changes and for those changes to be communicated between the design team. Once I've looked at these changes and I have decided that yes, this model, I need to go ahead and use this model. There are enough changes and they affect me and my MEP design enough that I need to go ahead and bring in this latest version of the model. So I'm going to go over here to consume. And then when I select consume, it's going to bring in that new architect's model to my environment. Now I'm going to change from design collaboration to the document management view in my web browser, and opening up my MEP folder, going into the consumed folder and the architectural folder there, you'll notice it has versioned the file. So now I am working with version 2 of the architect's file. Now all versions of files are maintained in the system and we can go back to different versions. In fact, we can even compare them in this view as well as the view that you saw. Now let's go back into Revit. So now as you can see, we're several weeks into the project and a lot of work has taken place in this project. Now, if I go to the Insert tab of the ribbon and go to my Manage Links, I can go reload and receive all those updates that I just put out from the new version of the architect's file. We just saw that when we're notified via email that there's a new model, how easy it is to compare the model and in a graphic way see those differences between the old and the new version of the model, thus greatly enhancing the communication between our design team. Next, we're going to look at other tools we have to collaborate between project stakeholders. We're going to explore our markup capabilities and our issue capabilities, which will allow us to have an email trail to track issues that we've created in the project. We're also going to look at the data-rich environment that the cloud gives us. Now we're over in the document management view of the web browser, and we're going to go into that particular MEP model that we've been working with. Now when I double click on it, it opens up in a view. Now this view, or in fact all the views that we're going to be looking at in this section are available for project stakeholders whether or not they have Revit. So all of this is available to all the people whether or not they have Revit. Now the views over here in this section, both the 3D views and the 2D views, these views are made available, so you choose what views you want to make available, and those are in the publish settings that you saw Broderick do in our first webinar. Now I'm going to drill down to the ground floor electrical plan. So here we go, ground floor electrical plan. And I'm going to zoom into my electrical room up here, and I realize there's a problem. So what I need to do is I need to communicate this problem with other team members. Now I could choose to do it in a couple of different ways. The first way I'm going to do it is I'm going to go up here and create a call out, and the kind of call out I'm going to create is a cloud call out. So I'm now going to cloud this area and put a spot where I want my text, and then put in my text and save my markup. So now I've created a markup of this area. Now the markup is a wonderful way of communicating, but it would be really nice if we had an email trail to show that somebody's actually received the information they need, who's responsible for fixing this, and we could even assign time frames, and we do all of that through something called issues. So over here in our section on the left is issues. So I'm going to select issues. I'm going to create a new issue, and I'm going to drop basically a push pin out there for the new issue. It's a design issue. It's open because nobody has addressed it yet. I'm going to call this one door swing. And I'm going to assign it to Broderick, our architect for this project. I'm not going to put in a particular due date. I'm just going to inform him of it. Our building is not set up into locations like broken down into wings or something like that. So now I'm just going to go down here and go to the root cause, and this is a code compliance because we don't have the clearance that we need. And then I'm just going to put that same description in here, and I'm going to create an issue. Now, by creating this issue, I am emailing Broderick that this issue exists. So he'll be able to select that and this take him right to this push pin, and he can see the issue. So that's just one of our robust ways to communicate with project stakeholders. Now let me go back to looking at my sheets and views here. And let's go down to, say, the ground floor HVAC view. Now in here I can see all kinds of different pieces of equipment and things. But when I select one, I can go to its properties, and I literally have the properties that this object has out of Revit. Let me make that a little bit longer so I can see all the different, electrical classifications. Like apparently hasn't got a load associated with it. We've got all the different information that is available in the Revit object is all available to all project stakeholders, whether they have Revit or not. So this is an incredibly powerful tool that lets us get down to the data that is contained within these objects. Now we have multiple ways of getting to this data, so let's take a look at another method we have of looking at the robust data that's kept inside this model. So I'm going to close down properties for a moment, and I'm going to switch to our 3D views, and I'm going to go to my ground level coordination view. Now I can look at it from any point of view, and this is the model that's been isolated for the ground floor. And I want to take a look at it from a particular type of object point of view. So I'm going to come down here and look at our model browser. So when I select my model browser, it brings up another window, and it categorizes the objects by the object type that they are in Revit. So if I want to isolate my lighting fixtures, I can isolate my lighting fixtures, my electrical equipment. In my case, I want to go up here to my mechanical equipment, and I can even expand it out and go down to particular type or pieces of equipment. So I can go and see all of this particular kind of equipment, or maybe these. So it gives you a very robust methodology to drill through the different object types that are in there. And we can even break it down into individual ones. So I can go to individual ones, and obviously I can select it and open back up my properties window, and I have all the properties of that particular object right here. So as you can see, all of the wonderful data inside our BIM model is available to everybody in this particular environment, regardless of whether they have Revit or not. So we've seen the robust power we have to collaborate with other project stakeholders, and also the incredible rich amount of data that is available to us in this cloud environment. So we've seen how to create models, put our central model in the cloud, link in architect's model, compare versions of models to enhance the communication between project stakeholders, and the wonderful collaboration tools we have in both markups and issues, and the data-rich environment that we have in the cloud. So with that, I'd like to turn it back over to Matt.
Thank you, Bruce. I I do appreciate you taking the time to take on that role of an MEP consultant and walk through the remainder of the design team and how they access that model. So at this point, if you guys have any questions, we will be connecting the contractors next week into the same project, the same cloud. And we will be taking a look at some mobile access points and how the contractor will be interacting with the model. So if there's no further questions, then we will adjourn.